समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
This is an episode of Cut the Clutter in extraordinary setting because we also have an extraordinary story. The Bihar election, as you must have guessed, looking at the river Ganga behind me. With me also, DK Singh, who all of you know so well, our political editor, and Sanya Dhingra, one of our brightest reporters and one of the pioneers at ThePrint, one of our first team members at ThePrint. She's been traveling deep in Bihar and will continue to do so over the next few days as well. Now, what I will do is, I will do a little bit of the agenda setting, tell you the 5 key points that make Bihar so fascinating and yet so exasperating for a journalist, for a political analyst, and obviously for a politician as well. Those 5 I will list, and then I will go to DK and defer to his knowledge and understanding on many things. DK is also from Bihar. That's not a qualification either of us has. And he's also from JNU. That's also not a qualification that either of us has. And Sanya, for what she's seen from the field, also on particular two or three specific points. So first of all, the 5 points about Bihar, let me list them for you. Number 1, while there's massive change in Bihar, and change every time we come here, I see change. Right? Every 5 years or so, I've been coming here for an election, and you've seen those series of writings on the wall, all of which I am now turning into video versions and sharing them with you. In all of these, we notice that there's been change. So there is change this time as well that I might talk about subsequently. However, the larger point is that the more things change, the more they remain the same. So change this time is more massive than any maybe in the past, except in the 2005 to 10 period. That was the good Nitish Kumar period. Yet many things remain the same, and I will tell you how. Which brings us to the second point, that in Bihar, while the state is so political and the population is so politicized, ideology becomes secondary to identity, right? Ideology becomes secondary to identity, and personal charisma is also mostly secondary. You will say, how can you say that? Lalu Yadav comes from here. He's a very charismatic politician. He is. But his charisma of various leaders is limited to their vote banks. It doesn't go beyond that. If you see Nitish, for example, he's built a vote bank of his own with EBCs, extremely backward castes to begin with, and then he has built a constituency among women. So if he has any charisma, it's among those. It hasn't gone beyond that. And that's how charisma is divided. Ideology is not a deciding factor. As a result of which, what is the deciding factor? Deciding factor is social coalitions that the different sides have built. So UPA had built one, which is now India Alliance, or now Mahagathbandhan here. They have one social coalition. Nitish, BJP, NDA, they have another social coalitions. Those DK will tell us more about. Generally, the broader coalitions are Lalu Yadav built a coalition of Yadavs and Muslims. That comes to about 30%, 31, 32% of vote share. And Nitish did not have those numbers. He broke away with EBCs, etc. But once the BJP came on board, then he's got welfarism as well, and also good governance. That is the image he built, and that built his personality and his pull for the voters as well. Fourth point, the state, while it had the big identity denominator, it has now also taken giveaways, or what is sometimes called freebies, giveaways, or welfarism. Let's just say welfarism to a completely different level. Modi government has added a zero to all welfarisms to take it to five figures for the first time with a 10,000 rupee one-time payout to 1.21 to 1.4 crore women. If you ask BJP people, they say 1.4 crore women. In a state of about 13 crores, more than 10% people, which means if half of the population is Muslim, more than 20% of them have got this one-time payout of 10,000 rupees with the promise of more coming their way if they set up a good enterprise, quote unquote, good enterprise. Nitish and Modi were both opposed to giveaways in the past. Nitish used to ridicule them. Modi also used to ridicule them as reveries. That has now completely changed. Within this, there are two sub factors. One, that unemployment has risen as an issue. So while Tejashwi Yadav says he will give a job to every Bihari family, which is 2.76 crore Bihari families, nobody is going to be, even if he gets the rights to build a mint in Patna and starts printing money, he's not going to be able to print enough to employ 2.76 crore in government jobs, particularly given the fact that at this point, there's only 20 lakh people in government jobs. But he's made that exaggerated promise because he's trying to hit that one button of unemployment, which is a pain for Bihar. BJP has said 1 crore. They haven't said all government jobs. They've said 1 crore government jobs and Rozgar. Rozgar means employment. You can be self-employed as well. And the other sub-factor here is that a third force has risen for the first time in Bihar. That is Prashant Kishore. He is in a way ideology free. He also has a very young support base, and he is driving this. He's driving this on a completely different platform. That is Palayan. Palayan means out-migration of people, because that's a big pain point for families, because the earning man in the family goes away. Wives don't see their husbands for more than a month in a year, if at all. Children don't see their fathers for very long in a year. At this point, the estimates are that about 1 crore, in fact, more than 1 crore people from Bihar, mostly men, a few women also, have gone to other parts of the country for jobs, for employment. And in most cases, this is basically subsistence employment. This is not high value out migration. This is really subsistence level out migration. At this point, for example, about 7 to 8 lakh people from Bihar are working in Surat, because that's where factories have come up in the last 10 years or so. And the last point is that in this state, while there is so much politics, vote banks are still ossified. So Yadavs have not left Lalu, mostly. I will give you some nuances there. Muslims have not left Lalu. Upper castes have not left the BJP. No matter what happens, upper castes stay with the BJP. Many of the EBCs and a large number of the women stay on with Nitish Kumar. Those vote banks are ossified. And how does this reflect in figures? DK will tell us more in detail. I will generally tell you, in Vidhan Sabha elections, both the JDU BJP alliance on one side and RJD Congress on the other, and whatever chota parties, caste-based parties they get with them, they together have almost a dead heat of about 37% and 37% votes in the last election. 2020 election, the net difference in votes between the two sides was just 12,000 votes. That's how strongly these vote banks are ossified. And in every assembly election, you can see that RJD has about 32% votes of its own. If Congress comes in, they also get about 5% more. And similarly, BJP and JDU, etc., with Paswan, get about that much. If Paswan's votes are transferred, maybe they'll get to about 40, 42. Similarly, the other side can get some other caste groups and they also get there. So these are very ossified vote banks. However, this shifts in parliament elections. In parliament elections, the Modi factor comes in. So what is about 37 generally in Vidhan Sabha elections? In Lok Sabha changes dramatically. In 2019, the BJP Lok Sabha vote went up to, NDA Lok Sabha vote went up to 54%. 2014, BJP was on its own. It was 39.4%. JDU was also on its own, 16%. But if you add 39 and 16, you come to the same number of about 54%. 2024, the BJP JDU NDA numbers had fallen to 47 and RJD Congress has gone up to 39. But in first past the post system, that's a very clear difference, and that clearly determines who will get more seats. In fact, it is because NDA was able to hold its own in Bihar that Modi government, that NDA was still able to reach the 240 mark. Because if Bihar had reflected the results, say, of neighboring Uttar Pradesh, then NDA may have fallen short by another 20 and ended up around 225 or maybe even 220 seats. That also tells you the final point that Bihar, although Bihar and Uttar Pradesh are separated just by a river and people are very similar, the languages are very similar, but the both states have completely different politics and mindset. At which point I will come to DK. DK, what is this business of this being such a politicized state, and yet ideology not determining who wins or loses?
It's basically the social base. If you look at both Mahagathbandhan, the opposition alliance, and the NDA. Now, NDA is much better when it comes to building the social umbrella. So the Mahagathbandhan side, you may have different parties, and this time especially, they have tried to bring in smaller groups also. So this time you have, of course, the RJD, the Congress, the left parties. They have tried to bring in, they have brought in VIP this time, Vikasil Insan Party of Mukesh Sahni.
Yes.
So basically
That's a party of boatmen.
Yes. So that Mallah community he belongs to is just about 2.6% of the population here. But that can be crucial because in assembly elections you have very, very close contests. Then they have brought IP Gupta of the Indian Inclusive Party. So he's a Tati.
No relation of mine.
Yeah. So he brings in just about 1.7% of his community votes. But then, as you are given to understand that these community votes, they have a spread over 50 constituencies, and they may have 5,000, 10,000 votes in every constituency, which may actually turn out to be crucial. But otherwise, if you look at the larger picture, how is it now? So, if you talk about RJD, they have the Muslim Yadav base. We are talking about just 32%. Now, among Muslims also, you may have a fraction of them maybe going to the Congress, fraction of the Yadavs going to the BJP. So we are just basically talking about the core vote bank being just about 30% of the RJD. The rest, most of them are with the NDA alliance. So you look at that, Nitish Kumar, he brings in, he belongs to Kurmi community, which is barely 3%. But then he brings in EBCs, he brings in women. You have then BJP, of course, upper caste, Modi fans. Then, of course, under Modi, the BJP has also expanded its ambit beyond upper caste and, many OBC voters, EBC voters, women. Yeah, so they have expanded. Then they have Dalits. They have brought in Maji. They have brought. They also have Chirag Paswan. They have substantial chunks of votes among Dalits. Then they have Upendra Singh Kushwaha, who brings Kushwaha votes. You look at a larger social umbrella, and they have a much substantial vote bank. So
are we right to say that in Bihar you don't have ideologies or political coalitions, you have social coalitions?
That's true. Mostly Bihar politics traditionally, if you see, it has been socialist. I mean, the larger strain has been socialism here. Yeah.
Sanya, what have you been watching? What is it that is most influencing people's minds? Because all said and done, the state has improved a great deal. It is still the poorest state in India. It is less than 1/3 of the national per capita income, less than 1/4 of the state with the highest per capita income. So what is it that you hear from people?
So with the caveat that mostly the last 2-3 days I have been in Siwan. So the caveat being that Siwan is a sort of an area.
Can I interrupt? Siwan is the Karam Bhumi of infamous Shahabuddin, and his son is now contesting elections. Carry on.
So the caveat being that it's mostly a stronghold of the RJD and even the left party. So it's so what I heard from the ground continued, as you said, very ossified vote banks. So what I heard from people was that they are mostly voting for the Mahagathbandhan. But having said that, issues of unemployment were especially among people who've come from outside, who've migrated, who've come back. They talk a lot about unemployment, yet the irony is that they remain ossified. So they are very intrigued, very curious by Prashant Kishore's Jan Swaraj campaign. But having said that, they the vote is very polarized. They are saying that they will go with the Mahagathbandhan. What I really focused on, though, when I was in Siwan, was why the CPI-ML, why the communist parties continue to do well there.
The most left of the mainstream political communist parties, the most left of those communist parties that participate in elections and that recognize the legitimacy of the Indian constitutional system, unlike the armed Naxals.
Right. But you can, and that's what we had set out to actually explore the pragmatism that has seeped into the left, especially the CPI-ML, even though it's the most extreme of the left. Last election, they contested in 19 seats, but they won 12 seats. So they had a strike rate of over 60%. And so
And they are part of the
Mahagathbandhan, and that was primarily why they also did that well, because they were in alliance this time. But the pragmatism also shows in the fact that, as you said, Siwan is most infamously known for Shahabuddin, and back in 1997 Shahabuddin really shot to infamy because he killed Chandrasekhar Prasad, who was a rising star of the CPI-ML at the time, two-time JNU-SU president. Allegedly. Never charge sheeted, accused very strongly of having killed him, but never even charge sheeted. So the CPI-ML at back then was the most vocal opponent of the RJD, of Shahabuddin. Now, almost 25-28 years later, you see that CPI-ML has become a lot more pragmatic. They are in alliance with the RJD, indirectly supporting his son Osama, who's now fighting the election. So that tells you that CPI-ML, more than any other left party, even though it's the most extreme of the left parties, has become really pragmatic here. And that sort of, for me, explained why they are so successful.
Well, as long as people are contesting elections, they put their hand on the constitution, right? So they are not really extremists. They have ideologies. But Sanya will give you this story in more detail. We published it yesterday. We'll share a link with you with the description of this Cut the Clutter. Also, she's doing a detailed video on this story. So please watch out for that. Sanya, the important part is it is Shahabuddin and characters like him and Siwan and places like that gave that created the Jungle Raj image, right? And that is still relevant, as we found everywhere. And also, you said he wasn't charge sheeted. The whole point is, those days, if a Bahubali did something, there's no question of being charge sheeted because no witness would appear. And if a witness would appear or will dare to complain, maybe will meet a very sad end.
Why are you talking about those days? Even today, you have somebody like Anand Singh.
Right.
I mean, you have a cabinet minister defending him publicly while the police is investigating that case.
Right. What is the case?
Now, Anand Singh, there was a huge cavalcade during the election campaign. The Jan Suraj party candidate supporter.
Just now,
Dulal Chand Yadav. Shots were fired. They were coming from two directions. They got into a fight, and then shots were fired. He was shot first, and then he was run over by a vehicle. Anand Singh is one of the accused in that case. He has been finally arrested, but now you have Rajiv Ranjan Singh, the cabinet minister, going in the constituency, asking everybody to become Anand Singh and campaign for him.
So Bahubali still holds sway.
Yes, I mean, you've seen the cabinet minister defending a Bahubali and campaigning for him.
And yet the Jungle Raj epithet sticks to Lalu and RJD. Kyun hai?
It was much more anecdotal. I mean, you had stories like, there is a marriage ceremony in Lalu's family. You'll have people kind of get brand new cars out of the, showrooms and taking it away. Nothing happens if some extortion had happened. You see, people connected to Lalu Yadav would be linked with that extortion, and they would be made to pay. Even if you have known Lalu Yadav, unless you paid something to his people, to his henchmen, you won't get your thing out. Those anecdotes actually have persisted. Otherwise, if you look at the crime rate over the last 10 years, crime rate in Bihar has been going up. I mean, we talk about murders, extortions, they're all going up. But nobody's talking about it because those days were, even now when you talk to people, they tell you after 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, nobody would come out on the road.
Well, that's true. What you're saying, figures are also true, NCRB figures. At the same time, there was headline crime in Lalu era. There was an IAS officer assassinated for which nobody was really, the impression was that there was protection for the guy, who did it, and his wife actually took his place as a politician, is now in Congress party. Similarly, another IS officer's wife was raped and murdered, and that case also looked like went nowhere. Somebody was assassinated in a hospital, right? Somebody under detention was assassinated in a gangland killing in the hospital, government hospital, under protection. So all that was the stuff of the movies.
But that's true. So nobody is saying that today Bihar is as bad as it used to be. The jungle, it was real jungle Raj.
Right.
I'm just saying, but now you see these incidents, people don't really react the same way because they have seen the worst in the past.
Right.
And if I can just add to that, in Sivan, what's curious is, because I was asking about Shahabuddin to people, what's curious is that there is a massive normalization of this criminalization. So most people you ask will respond by saying, उन्होंने murder किए तो कौन murder नहीं करता? तो इससे हमारा क्या लेना देना? So it's actually curious to understand why Bahubali works despite, and does his criminal image actually add to his charisma?
His aura. So I can add something to that. What happens is when the state fails to function, when the police stations don't function, the courts don't function, the DC, SP, they are ineffective, then people go to some authority to get justice. And we've seen this happening in, say, Naxal affected areas where Naxal set up their courts. And I've seen it in Punjab, say between 1990 and 92. By 93, it had waned. When armed separatists who were carrying out killings, kidnappings, extortion, everything, they were setting up their own justice system.
People's courts.
Yeah, people's courts. Well, they didn't call them people's courts, so those were more like religious courts, right? Or they just called to people and said, we'll settle your dispute, obviously for a tribute. This happens, that's my observation, when the state doesn't function. Once the state functions, there is no space for this. When the state is ineffectual, then in that vacuum, these Bahubalis move in because people need somebody's authority. Otherwise, it becomes this is a controlled anarchy. This is a criminal controlled or Bahubali controlled anarchy instead of an anarchy. DK, how are things looking now in terms of coalition, social coalitions, promises? I'm not asking you who's winning, but
What we have to look at is, and my question is, has Bihar changed? Or does Bihar remain ossified as it always was? So I have been telling you, like in 2014, when Lalu Yadav and Nitish Kumar came together, I was with the BJP leader, and I asked him what's happening. He said, "Oh, Modi ji ki आंधी चल रही है." I said, "What are you talking? Nitish Kumar and Lalu Yadav coming together, what space do you have left then?" He said, "बिहार बदल गया है, कास्ट खत्म हो गया है, आप लोगों को कुछ पता नहीं है." कहीं कर मोदी जी का देखिए, and 2014, I mean, we had to listen to him. 15, we had to listen to him because, well, the kind of wave PM Modi had
2015 was the assembly
election. So I actually kept quiet. Maybe Modi wave is that strong that will actually sweep away all caste considerations. We know the results. This time again, Prashant Kishore has created such a huge wave. You go anywhere, people are talking about this. But has Bihar really changed, or does it remain where it was in 2015 when I was talking with that BJP leader?
Yeah. So, Sanya, what do you pick up since you've gone to the ground?
I mean, I think we captured it early on when you said that it remains extremely ossified. There is a lot of conversation around issues. Even Nitish Kumar's promise of 10,000 rupees to women, that does not, at least did not seem to me that it would transcend women's identity. So if I was speaking to Dalit women, they were very circumspect of this promise of 10,000 rupees. When I spoke to Yadav and Muslim women, extremely circumspect.
Not affected.
Sanya, don't forget, so Jivika Didis who have been given 10,000 rupees, they are just 1.4 crores. You have almost 3.5 crore women voters in Bihar.
Yeah.
So you have a large majority who have not got that 10,000 rupees.
And you found indebtedness, unemployment you said is an issue. Indebtedness is another issue.
Yes, in fact, I did come across, and they would call them these private companies who come and promise loans.
Microfinance companies.
They call them these private loan companies, but they are microfinance companies. And I saw, at least I can tell you one incidence of this one Dalit woman who I met. She was in need of money, was given money by this microfinancing company, but she was not able to return the interest for 1 month. After that, she said there was so much harassment, and this was mostly social harassment, but she said that they really made my life difficult. And it was then she was a CPIML voter and told me that when these people came to my rescue, I got some sort of relief. Otherwise, there was just daily harassment.
So DK, unemployment, indebtedness is a problem.
Huge problem. There are many other problems. Unemployment, well, we hear the most. There are many other problems on the ground when you talk to the people. But are they going to swing votes for this party or the other? As a Bihari, I don't know.
So I can just talk about the fact that now I'm off to Simhanchal to look at, and the Simhanchal, of course, is known to be one of the areas where there is a dominance of Muslims. So that's what I'm going to explore now. Last election, we know that Owaisi sprung up a surprise because his party won 5 seats. Of course, 4 of them then went to RJD.
Plus he got a bunch of votes.
Exactly. So, but this time I'm going to see what Muslims are thinking. You know, one thing that people don't think about when they think about Bihar's Muslim politics is, and I have to add that because of the ascendance of the BJP, there has been a lot of sort of uniformity of the Muslim vote, which was not the case in Bihar, because Bihar is, we know about the backward movement of Hindus here, but it is also the place where the backward movement among Muslims began in the 90s. And that movement has completely been suppressed.
In fact, Nitish tried to reach out to Pasmanda Muslims.
So what she can also explore, you know, when this such a committee report came, there was a huge outcry all over. And what have the Muslims got for their loyalty to so-called secular parties?
Right.
And there was a lot of introspection going on. What had changed? Nothing. They were doing a rethink. You saw them going to regional parties. You know, Owaisi started kind of getting more traction among them.
Badruddin Azmal in Assam also.
Now again you see them rallying behind the parties who supposedly do not do much for them.
But is most likely to defeat the BJP.
Yeah.
And you know, the irony is when I was speaking to Muslims in Siwan, they are also very fearful of the coming back of the Yadav rule if RJD comes back, because they know at the local level, it's the Yadavs who also are accused of harassing them. So they are very wary of that as well. But
it's not just Muslims, among many EBCs.
And SCs.
Even OBCs also, certain communities. They're not very comfortable with Yadavs coming to...
So some of the jungle Raj metaphor has also come from that.
Yeah.
The Yadav domination, in some cases Yadav Muslim domination. So all of that's on test this time in Bihar, and that's the reason we started out by saying that in some ways this is the I mean, definitely in no contestable way, this is incontrovertible that Bihar is the janmabhoomi of democracy for humankind. And democracy started just about 45-minute drive as you cross this bridge to the other side to Vaishali, right? In fact, if you go somewhere there near Muzaffarpur, there's a signboard saying this is where democracy started in several centuries BC. So important thing is this is the janmabhoomi of democracy. This is also the state with the most politicized and politically conscious people. This is also the state with many ideologies, and yet in this state, ultimately everything intersects: ideology, identity, economics, right? And survival, all of that. And that's what makes it so much more fascinating. So once again, as I started, Bihar is both fascinating and exasperating. Fascinating is a part of my job. Exasperating is something that DK and Sanya are exploring. So keep a lookout for their coverage, and also we'll do more writings and more commentary on this very vital election in Bihar.